Welcome to the Wine Brothers Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, feel free to support us on Patreon at Wine Brothers Podcast, follow us on Instagram at Wine Brothers Podcast, or follow us on Twitter at Wine Brothers Pod. Thank you very much. Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm good, John. How you doing?
Oh, same as always. A little more rested than the last time we spoke. Harvest is, it's not slowing down, but it's becoming a little more manageable.
Agreed. I'm starting to see the sunset almost when I go home. I pitched my last yeast today. So we got the last one going, and probably in another 20 days or so, we'll be done.
Gotcha.
With fermentation.
Very cool. I have all of my fresh fruit that I'm getting in is all pitched, but we have some juice deliveries scheduled for the next couple months that I have to worry about.
Right.
But I mixed up my bentonite today for my first bentonite edition of the season, so that was exciting.
Wow, you are a fast mover.
Well, I got to clear some tanks out so that we can get some other things ready.
Yeah, I've been pitching beta-gluconidase, but no bentonite yet.
Tell me about the beta-gluconidase. What is it?
I use a Lafort. It's beta-gluconidase. Basically, it's supposed to free up aroma molecules in the wine that may be bound to sugars that might not be free. It makes them volatile. So.
Gotcha.
But obviously, like all enzymes, it is deactivated by bentonite. So. But it's good for any time that you have bound aromas that you don't think are expressing themselves.
Well, last time we were mentioning...
It's always good to like run. When I used it last year, I ran it on like maybe 3 of 5 barrels on a lot or something. So not on all of them, just so I had a basis of comparison. But this year I was confident with it, so I just pretty much mixed it with everything. So
would recommend this?
The full lot. Yeah, I would. I like it.
And you, what varieties?
I used it on Sauv Blanc and Pinot Gris today.
Very cool. We were just discussing what yeast we're fermenting Sauv Blanc shortly here, and we were just discussing what yeast we were going to use for it.
What was on the table?
I think it was VGC. It was 3 letters. The first one was a V, and then Vin 13 was on the table as well.
Okay.
I know.
So I've used Vin 13. I like it. Sometimes it throws a nice grapefruit rind flavor, which is cool.
That's what I'm leaning towards, the Vin 13.
Yeah. Low nutrient. Really good cold fermenter. What did I use this year that I liked? X5 is really good. How many lots are you doing? Is it just one single tank, or are you breaking it up at all?
It'll be 1 tank.
Okay. So, yeah, I liked it as... I like X5. I like Vin 13. QA23 was okay. I liked VL3 as well.
Okay.
But those are the ones I've used on Sauv Blanc. But generally, when I do these multiple fermentations, majority of it is usually Vin 13.
Gotcha. This is my first go around with Sauv Blanc, and I'm excited to work with a new grape as always. It's my last 5 harvests have been pretty standard with what I've been working with: Bordeaux varieties, Chardonnay, Vignoble, Vidal, and Riesling, mostly. And then I know last time we were talking about where in France they oak age Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
And I looked it up, and the most likely place you'd find it oak age is in Bordeaux, and then sometimes in the Loire and Sancerre. they will, or Sancerre, they
Sancerre.
will put a very small amount in oak, but it's
Just a small percentage.
small percentage, yeah, and small influence. I know that we were discussing using an oak barrel. I'm not sure where we are with that. Me personally, the Sauvignon, I would be more interested in just a fruit forward, higher acid Sauvignon Blanc than.
Right. I've done both. I told you that my last boss liked to play games with our wine club members, so he did one that was aged in oak for 4 months, and one that was completely stainless, and then he had them vote on it. And they wound up, it was pretty much 50-50 split right down the board.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, we're actually probably making this for our wine club members, because a lot of we've made it in the past, when we first opened, but people are always asking for, well, do you have any new releases? So this year we are going to release Sauvignon Blanc as our new release, which will be exciting.
Cool. Yeah, it loves nutrients, so just be heavy-handed.
Yeah, loves nutrients, hates bentonite, and
needs bentonite.
hates protein stability, rather.
Yeah, hates protein.
That's what I was hinting at. Also, I think it's one of the varieties that is prone to H2S production, which is probably related
absolutely.
to the nutrient.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I've made Sauvignon Blanc, let's see, 5 harvests now, maybe 6. Yeah, and it's always fun. Like, I love how expressive it is on the nose. When I worked with Jacques at the second place I worked, he had 2 varieties of Sauvignon Blanc growing in the vineyard. One was a standard Sauvignon Blanc clone, and one was Sauvignon Blanc Musqué, which I guess at some point Sauvignon Blanc was planted near some Muscat, and there was some crossing that happened, and this particular clone of Sauvignon Blanc took on some Muscat characteristics, so it was super fruity and super tropical, and people liked it, so they just took the cuttings and propagated it. So we had both of those in our vineyard, and I think it really helped make the Sauvignon Blanc really expressive.
Was this Henry or Jacques?
What's that?
I said, was this Henry or Jacques?
Jacques.
Very cool. And is this did he do this himself with the cutting? Or was this done years ago?
No, I mean, he purchased them on the rootstock he wanted. I think it was on 3309.
Okay. That's awesome.
And it was planted. But we had 4 rows of that, and the rest of it was the regular clone. And then sometimes we'd supplement from Lake County.
Very cool.
Yes.
I always am scheming in my head about which varieties I'll be able to plant when the dream comes to fruition. I own my own vineyard.
Yeah. Well, I think in the Northeast Sauvignon Blanc, it's easier to grow than some varietals, but it still presents its challenges. I mean,
Yeah.
we tend to have a fair amount of sour rot that creeps up.
What are your harvest dates like for Sauvignon Blanc?
It's usually third one in. It's second week in September.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious what
the Pinot Gris goes first, and then the Sauv Blanc, and then the Vidal Sparkling, then the Chardonnay. That's usually how it goes.
I'm curious what my harvest dates will be like when I get that vineyard up and running that I've been working on with the Frontenac Gris and the Marquette, to see when if I'm well, one, if I'll be able to, but when acids finally drop off on those varieties.
Yeah, the Marquette, man, I don't know. That is ripe really early. Like the bricks get there early. I told you my friends have a vineyard at their place about 15 minutes from here, and my God, it's coming in like the second week of August. It's ready from a brick standpoint. You know, it's like 24 bricks the second week of August.
Wow. That's optimistic.
The acidities are still screaming though. Like you can taste it, and even at 24 bricks, when you taste the grapes in the field, you're like, "Whoa, this has some acidity." So,
what were the acids at when you finally picked it? Do you remember?
oh well, I didn't. I just had been through the vineyard. I didn't process it this year. They wound up getting a pretty serious bird attack, and that took most of the fruit, so they didn't think it was worth it. But I think they'll probably net next year and protect it.
Yeah, I mentioned
No, I
I
didn't.
had.
I mean, I would estimate, but this is just a palate guess that it was, between 9 and 11.
Okay, so that's
grams
still
per liter.
pretty up there. I actually had a turkey issue in the little bit of Marquette I had on the vine this year as well, so
Oh,
I have
really?
to figure out what I'm going to wind up doing.
Can you put in another electric fence wire that's lower?
The turkeys would probably just jump over it.
I'll jump over.
Well, they fly.
Right.
Yeah, but I imagine what I'll probably wind up doing is net.
Okay.
Or
All
bird
right.
collar.
What are you working on right now? You said you're bentoniting and getting things just wrapped up so that you can get more juice in?
Yeah, I'm bentoniting our rosé, and I'm fermenting Chard, Vignoles, and Cab Sauv and Merlot.
We've been racking like crazy.
Yeah.
We've got all these wines finished, and now we need to rack them up, so.
Yeah, I was using the Acuvin for the Chardonnay malolactic
How's it
yesterday.
coming along?
I think it's done, but I'm going to send it out to a lab to be certain. I've never
Okay.
used those before, but it barely changed color, if at all.
Good.
Like, it looked like... I didn't know what to expect, but it was still, like, mostly yellow, but there was, like, some purple, but faint. Very faint.
Faint purple?
Yeah.
And when you put it against the gauge, what did it say?
I was less than 30 milligrams, I think.
Okay.
Milligrams per liter, so...
Yeah, I've been using chromatography for ours, and they're both through, which is great. The Merlot and the Malbec are done. I've got a Bordeaux blend that isn't quite there, and the Cabernet Sauvignon is close. So, one of the things I did this year that I think really benefited the malolactic was, I co-inoculated this year. I think on day 4 of the ferment, I pitched the malolactic culture during a pump over. And what I found, I had the heat on the tanks, and it moved it right through.
Oh, very cool. What variety?
For Merlot, Malbec, Cabernet Sauvignon, and then we're doing a Bordeaux co-ferment right now.
Oh, very cool. And you think that it finished them all out?
I know that the Malbec and the Merlot are done, but
That's awesome.
Not the Bordeaux is not done yet, which could be a high alcohol thing, but we'll see.
I would actually love to start doing that just from a barrel management perspective.
Oh yeah.
I know we both have our different feelings about barrels, but the more I'm working with them, the more I'm coming around to your side of things, where I'd never had problems with VA or anything like that, and then I don't know what happened. We're just making too much wine or whatever, but I'm worried that my barrel management practices aren't up to snuff. So things like that would be.
Barrels are a pain in the ass.
I know.
I mean,
Well, the one thing.
yeah, they're wonderful for some things, and they can cure a lot of problems in a wine, which is nice. Yeah. But I love those days when we were only using staves. You know they're clean. You cut the foil bag open, you drop them in.
Yeah.
And, it's time to, it's got enough oak. Okay, you pull it out. That was all it was. And, you toss them on the burn pile. You didn't have to, or, you give them to your wine club members and they go home and smoke some ribs. But, it was never a situation where, you have to empty the barrel and then power wash it and then steam it and then sulfur it and then come back and sulfur it, and it's heavy. And, yeah, I mean, there's a romance in barrels, don't get me wrong. And they're wonderful. But, yeah, there are nice things about not using them, too.
Yeah, I think I'll have barrels at my winery when at this futuristic winery, and I think I'll just try to keep them mostly new.
Hey, there's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah,
it's a good way to keep yourself safe.
Well, mostly new, and then I can't. Yeah, mostly new. I think is all that it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, the reason people have problems is either cleanliness practices or, there's too many and you just didn't have time to top them up in a timely manner.
Yep.
Oxygen and low SO2 and, and this part of the country is predisposed to having VA and, Acetobacter, right? It comes in on the fruit.
Yeah.
At higher concentrations than it ever did in California. So, the opportunity is there for that to grow when, it's always in solution. And when the sulfite's low and it gets oxygen, it will creep. So.
Yeah, there are so many practices I would like to, add into the protection on the front end, like what you do with the Gallic tannin. And right. I was just reading about. Are you familiar with this AST product? It's like.
Yes, I've talked to someone about it. Yeah, it's an ascorbic sulfite combo,
yes.
Right.
That's actually
something.
So
it was recommended to me to try it. I didn't get to try it this year. It was too late. We'd already ordered everything for our firm plan. So, but it was recommended to me, and I may play around with it next year.
Yeah, I may play around with it as well.
What did you hear about it?
I was just reading that it can help with front-end oxidation, and it can help with microbial stability, obviously. And okay. It helps... I'm not sure if the AST has any effect on the lacase enzyme that we were chatting about.
Couldn't hurt.
Or polyphenol oxidase.
If it prevents oxidation, then that's good.
Yeah.
So lacase is, it's funny you mention that because I had some fruit come in that had some botrytis on it, and that was the big worry.
Yeah.
Was the oxidation from that. So we've been keeping it in a very low oxygen environment. I've been gassing the tank with CO2 from the bottom every day.
What variety?
Cab Franc.
Okay, so something that it would be hard to use bentonite on, or some denaturing.
Exactly. There isn't something that you can use to try.
No, you could pasteurize it.
Yeah, right. That is one of the things that they offer up. The Australian Wine Institute says that. But yeah, I mean, just throwing tons of tannin at it, and oak, powder, all sorts of things, high SO2, all sorts of things to try and negate the effect of it. I pitched it early. It didn't cold soak for more than 2 days. We got it in there. We got it cold, and then I turned the chiller off and I pitched. So, moving fast, and I guess post, you have to be really careful with it too. So it's just going to be careful oxygen management practices, being really good with carbon dioxide gas from the bottom, from the top, until it starts fermenting and producing that on its own to a protective degree.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, they're probably going to want to leave it on the skins for a while, doing some post maceration. So I got to be really good with the gas then too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a different ball game out here in the Northeast for sure with fruit and all that.
Oh my god, yeah, it really is. There were a couple of instances. I saw some powdery mildew damage for sure when I was in California, and one time we had bunch rot, which was very interesting. I'd never seen that before, but basically came in on a Zinfandel lot, and the grapes looked beautiful on the outside, and then as soon as it started to get destemmed, like the inside was just like, it was just liquid mucus, and I was like, oh my god, it's gross.
I wonder if that was a wasp infestation that was poking holes in all the berries and.
No, like the berries looked fine, but as soon as you got, like, Zinfandel is really tightly clustered.
Yeah.
And as soon as you got on the back side of the berries, it liquefied on the inside. It was gross, but not pure liquid, more like mucus.
Gotcha.
And we were just tossing clusters aside. I think we threw away 35% of that lot when it came in with hand sorting. But yeah, I mean, those were the only two drastic, terrible things I ever saw. And raisoning. What I wouldn't give for that to just be an issue.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my god. But yeah, so there's lots of things. You got to be heavy-handed with the acid here. The potassium levels are a lot higher on this side of the country than they are in California. There's major buffering capacitance here with your acid adds. So,
that's vineyard specific though as well.
Yeah, but just in general, I believe there's higher potassium here than there is in California. It's across the East Coast too, Pennsylvania for sure. Maryland, Virginia. I don't know about New Jersey, but I would assume similar soil and everything. So.
Well, our site, we're growing on beach sand essentially.
Okay.
There is some clay, but
good drainage and.
There are a couple different soil types running through our drainage, but
generally?
mostly it is good drainage, a little bit of clay, some loam, and a couple of high vigor spots, but mostly it's just lower vigor, well drained, clay sand kind of mix. Mostly sand though, which is nice.
Okay. So we had one of the places I worked. We had red clay in California, which was pretty interesting, but the slope was very significant there.
Yeah.
And then at the other place I worked, it was more like sand and metamorphosized granite. Also, again, very steep slope.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited on the vineyard the site that I'm growing on in upstate New York. It's steep slope, and it's windy up there, so I was noticing how fast everything was drying. So if we had little rain events, you'd walk out there right after and the grapes were already dry, which is really nice. South facing.
That makes a big difference. I think that's one of the benefits of where I work now. We have pretty significant breezes coming off the Chesapeake Bay.
Oh, nice.
And it rips right through the vineyard and keeps things pretty dry. So, yeah, anytime we have rain or anything, it blows right through and dries up.
Yeah, I'm wondering how I'm going to curtail the birds with a marquette, because if it's a problem down there, it's definitely going to be a problem where I am.
Right.
So I think next year I'm going to try to do everything but net. So I'll buy a bunch of coyote decoys and a bunch of owl decoys and then some spinners and see if I can't keep him away.
So you had a lot of bird issues this year?
No, I'm just worried because you said your friends had a bird issue, and the few marquettes that were out there got eaten.
Yeah, I mean, there's massive starlings and blackbirds out here, like huge
Swarms.
of them.
Yeah.
What do they call them? Flocks? Swarms?
I don't know what you call them. Pests is what I call them. You can thank the...
Hey, can we pause for a second?
Sure. Do you want to just wrap up here?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll keep this one short. I'm running out of steam anyways, and... Anywho, thank you all for listening to the Wine Brothers podcast, and we'll catch you here next time.
Yep. Take
Don't
care.
forget
Happy
to
harvest.
follow us on Instagram or Twitter or support us on Patreon, and happy harvest.